What is the importance of learning if you can't remember what you have learned? Especially when you are on the verge of writing an examination. You learn throughout the whole night, 5 hours, 7 hours straight, without even taking a break. And at the end of the study, you found yourself that you remember absolutely nothing. This is very hectic and very worrisome. It's a challenge that faces most students, and it also happened to me. But I found out that most of the strategies that we use as students is not very helpful. And so I did a research on how you can be able to remember the thing that you learned and then being able to reproduce during examination to get good grades. You know, it is not sometimes our problem of the learning strategies, but it's a problem of the strategies that or the techniques that we use in recalling that what we have learned. So I will ask this question again: what is the importance of learning if you cannot remember what you have learned and being able to use it? So that should tell you that our memory is very important. That when it comes to the learning aspect, our memory plays a vital, crucial role that most of us will ignore it. We are just interested in accumulating the knowledge in our head and not worrying about how at a later time we'll be able to recall that information that you have put in the brain and using it in terms of opportunity or in terms of a challenge. And so the research that I did, I found out that there are about 5 ways that if you're able to employ as a student, I believe that you'll be able to recall, if not 100%, at least 90% of whatever that you have learned so far. So bear with me. The first technique that I want to share with you is what we call the active recalling. Active recalling. You know, most of the times when we are learning throughout the night, when we have examination the next day, what we do as students is that we try to read and reread and reread and math practice the lesson outline or the slide that we have been given into us by our lectures. This is a strategy that is very least productive because it creates an illusion of mastery over the material that in actual sense that we have no understanding of the material. We have no understanding of the material. You see, the illusion of fluency that comes when we cram the material in our head or when we reread over a material in order for us to recall. We think that we have been able to master and the thing is in our internal archive, but seldom is this true. What we can do is what I've said earlier, that when you engage in active recall, this active recall is actually when you read a particular text, let's say the first page of a material, and then you try to recall actively. That's why I use the word actively, not passively, actively. That is, you try to look away from the book and try to recall, remember what you have learned. This is it's a very difficult exercise that most students try to refrain from because of the struggle and then the unpleasant nature of that exercise. But research has shown that the effort that we put into recalling information helps further consolidate what we have learned in our brain. It helps to reinforce and solidify it. And so active recalling is very important when it comes to memory. And so if you want to remember everything that you have learned as a student, you need to actively recall rather than rereading over the text over and over and over again. You need to actively recall the information that you have learned. The next thing that I want to talk to you is about using visual learning or visual representation or mental model. That is, when you are learning the subject, you try to picture that thing in your head or in your mind. You can do this by using mind mapping, where you are able to actually note down the central idea and then the the tentacles in knowledge that applies to that the central what the knowledge. So when you're able to write all of them down and you're able to picture the thing in your head, it is very easy for you to recall at a later time, because you have created a mental model, a cue, that the moment you are able to remember, the brain will trigger other information to come to play. You know, the brain is in such a way that it takes pictures. It's better able to remember pictures than in words. And so if you're able to mentally picture the learning material in your mind's eye, you are better able to remember than someone who just want to put the words and recall words in his or her brain. So that is the visual word learning. The next one that I want to talk to you about is what I call the remedial learning. Remedial learning. What do I mean by remedial learning? What I mean by remedial learning in the sense that after you've read a particular book, let's say for the first day, you go back to the book, let's say in 3 days time, or in a week, or in a month, and revisit what you have learned in order to reconsolidate and reinforce what you have learned in your mind. This will help you to better understand even the concept that you have learned. There is something that we call the spacing effect that actually happens when you interleave your learning process. And so when you have learned one thing and the first day, interleaving it for another day, let's say 3 days, you are actually making use of that spacing effect that comes out of the reflection that you need. You know, it takes a long time for the brain to move information from the short-term memory into the long-term memory, and this spacing effect, as a result of the remedial learning or the spaced repetition that you have engaged in, will help you to interrupt forgetting and tie the knot of memory. So you need to engage in this remedial learning or spaced repetition that I found out recently. The next thing that you can use is by devices such as flashcards and mnemonics. So mnemonics, in the sense that you actually represent a large statement or paragraph by sometimes using a word or a shape or something to represent that, so that it creates a key in your mind that whenever you see that thing, you are able to remember. So one of the popular mnemonics that we know is ROYGBIV. That is Roy GB. You know, it represents the colors of the rainbow. And then during my high school days, when we were learning the 20 elements of the periodic table, that is from hydrogen to calcium, we also used songs to be able to remember. So I recall some. So hydrogen, it was like hello. So hello, 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 little berry boy can never. So you see, so hello, hello, hydrogen, helium, lithium, beryllium, boron, carbon. You are able to better recall. It creates a cue in your mind. And then using the flashcards. So the flashcard is when you write something on a piece of paper on a card, and then you reshuffle it in order for you to better recall or better remember what you have learned. And so I believe that you following these things will help you to remember everything that you have learned. Remember, do it actively, not passively. Actively and not passively. And so I ask this question again: what is the essence of learning if you can't remember what you have learned? This shows that our memory is very vital when it comes to academics and learning. So you need to be able to remember. Mastery in learning comes as a result of what? We being able to remember what we have learned. So we need to remember, and I believe that these few techniques or nuggets of wisdom I've shared with you will help you to better remember what you have learned. Thank you.